Today, we're talking about nasal breathing, the benefits and how to do it properly. So you're either breathing out of your nose or out of your mouth or a combination of both. However, most people are chronic mouth breathers, meaning that they're taking in a majority of their air through their mouth. And when they do that, that tells the body, it actually triggers the nervous system to say, okay, I'm in a fight. I need to be in a fight or flight response, as opposed to nasal breathing. When we're breathing out of our nose, we are sending a signal to our nervous system that we're relaxed. We're in a position where we don't have to fight for our survival. We're in a relaxed state. And therefore, it actually releases nitric oxide, which is this powerful compound that helps to dilate blood vessels, and it brings 10 to 20% more oxygen into the brain and the body. Nasal breathing is also associated with the parasympathetic nervous system, which helps calm us. It helps to stimulate good digestion and triggers our body to heal and repair itself. So really throughout the day, we want to mostly be breathing out of our nose. We should only be breathing out of our mouth when we are talking. And if we are exerting ourselves at a really high intensity, then we need just more airflow as a whole. So we should be breathing out of, both our nose and our mouth. And so when we are chronic mouth breathers, like most people are, they are triggering their sympathetic nervous system, their fight or flight nervous system. And if you're doing that, especially at night, that's not going to allow you to sleep effectively. Also, when you're doing it at night, it causes dry mouth, which increases the acidification of the mouth and results in more dental cavities and gum disease. We also know that mouth breathing actually distorts the facial shape and increases a child's risk of forward head posture and reduces their overall breathing strength, right? Their respiratory strength. And it increases your risk of snoring and obstructive sleep apnea. So if you're developing sleep apnea associated with mouth breathing and not being able to breathe effectively out of your nose, nasal breathing is also very good for warming and humidifying incoming air, removing a significant amount of germs and bacteria. In fact, a 2012 study showed that it improved, as opposed to mouth breathing, just nasal breathing itself improved allergic rhinitis, right? So, upper respiratory types of allergic responses. And so it's very, very good for the immune system. Also, interestingly, a 2016 study out of neuroscience showed that nasal breathing improved your limbic related brain areas, your amygdala and your hippocampus, which are associated with your mood. They're associated with fear. And also the hippocampus in particular is associated with memory. And in this study, it showed that nasal breathing really improved memory. And then they did a follow-up study in 2018 in the journal Neuroscience, and they showed that nasal breathing improves memory. So if you really want to have better memory, you want to breathe through your nose throughout the day. There was also a 2013 study in Neuro Report that showed that it increased oxygen in the prefrontal cortex. So amazing benefits from nasal breathing: increases oxygen uptake and circulation. It also supports deep and restorative sleep quality because it's triggering that parasympathetic nervous system, which calms your body. Again, improves physical and cognitive health. It activates that parasympathetic nervous system, lowers your risk of allergies, nasal congestion, and hay fever, supports a proper facial development in children. And it also improves your oral health. So you have a lower risk of cavities, gum disease when you're breathing through your nose, particularly at night, but really throughout the day as well, to get the best benefits. So nitric oxide has been shown to, again, improve the oxygen uptake into the blood and into the brain. When you have this nasal nitric oxide, it increases tissue oxygenation by 10 to 20%, and it improves your mood, your memory, and your mental drive, again, by impacting the limbic regions like the amygdala, and then also with memory, the hippocampus, where we store our memory. And so really great stuff there. It also improves your overall sleep quality, helps you get better deep and REM sleep. And so I measure my sleep using a Oura ring, right? So a little ring that I wear that's hooked up to an app on my phone, and I'm able to track my deep and REM sleep. And I've actually been using something called mouth tape over my mouth to make sure that I'm able to breathe through my nose. And it's really powerful how it impacts my deep and REM sleep. They are significantly improved since I've been using this several years ago. Now, nasal breathing, again, improves deep sleep. It reduces snoring. And this is how I found out. My wife, when I was single, I didn't know that I snored. I didn't think I did. And then I got married and my wife said, you know what, you're snoring. And I said, oh, really? And so I looked into this, and this is, many years ago, and I found mouth taping. And I said, okay, well, let me try this. I taped my mouth and, I stopped snoring, and I also improved my deep and my REM sleep quality. I also reduced dry mouth. I used to wake up often with sore throats. When you wake up first thing in the morning, it almost never happens now. And it really improved my daytime energy levels. And I used to have a lot of nasal congestion. I have a lot less now. And that's surprising to a lot of people. They say, you know what, there's no way I could breathe out of my nose, especially at night, because I'm always so congested. But believe it or not, that has to do with the microbiome in your nasal sinuses and your nasal cavity. And so the more that you are nasal breathing throughout the day and at night, the better you are going to be. Actually, it's going to help to reshape your nasal microbiome, create more balance there, and you're going to have less congestion. We also know that for children, when children are developing, nasal breathing is really associated with a well-developed jaw that is, and good definition of the cheekbones. And those tend to be very, very good for beauty characteristics, kind of a wide face, well-developed jaw, good definition of cheekbones, and also for good tooth structure. So for me, I did not do that. And I developed forward head posture, which takes out the natural cervical curve in your neck and can cause a lot of different health problems, which I did have irritable bowel in my early 20s. And this is probably one of the reasons why, because I was a chronic mouth breather. So I developed forward head posture. I also did not, I have a very, very narrow face, although I think, I'm good looking. I don't have those natural characteristics. And then also my tooth structure, the way that my teeth came in, was really poor. And I had braces for 3 years. So nasal breathing is associated with much lower risk of needing braces. The teeth come in and they set in really, really well. Better overall cervical curve, better, your ear, your head's back over your shoulders, so you don't have that forward head posture. And that's really important for a child's ability to focus. There's a higher risk of ADHD with kids that have forward head posture. There's a lot of risks of asthma, allergies, different issues like that when they have forward head posture. So really getting this done, getting this set properly, and doing nasal breathing as a child is so critical. It's really, really important for the overall development of the face and the immune system, right? And of course, a lower risk of cavities and, gum disease and different issues like that. So there's a lot that goes into that. And we know that the average person out there is actually breathing really fast. They're doing 12 to 18 breaths per minute, just these short, shallow breaths. And that, again, triggers that fight or flight response. So they have more sympathetic activity, higher blood sugar, higher adrenal stress hormones. Whereas optimal breathing is really slowing that down. Long, deep breaths. So like 6 breaths per minute, one breath that takes 10 seconds. Just nice, long, deep breaths, long inhale, long exhale. And that is associated with parasympathetic function, which really allows you to rest, heal, digest, and regenerate effectively. And even when you're exercising, a lot of people think, well, I've got to breathe out of my mouth when I'm exercising. But when we exercise, there's actually 3 breathing phases. One is the brace, which we've all experienced. Like if you're doing a heavy squat or a heavy bench press or something, there's a point where you kind of hold your breath. That's the brace. And of course, that happens during intense exercise or intense stress. There's mouth breathing, but really that should only happen when you build a high enough oxygen debt that you will need to increase your airway to get more air into your lungs. So you shouldn't be doing that by default. You should be mostly nasal breathing. And interestingly, a 2018 study out of the International Journal of Kinesiology and Sports Science showed that when you were breathing out of your nose while exercising, okay, and doing it, you're exercising it not at a very high intensity, but low to moderate intensity, it actually improves your VO2 max, your respiratory rate. So it actually lowers the amount of respirations that you take, improves your oxygen consumption, your oxygen delivery, and your carbon dioxide production. So it actually improves those levels. So you're actually consuming more oxygen, you're producing less waste, you get improved cardiac and metabolic responses. So you're able to burn more fat. You're able to, again, improve that VO2 max. You're able to have, better blood pressure. So it really improves a lot of different regions when you're doing this while you're exercising. And people notice that they don't fatigue as quickly because they're able to, basically gather more oxygen in their cells. They're able to have better oxygen consumption and utilization. So they're able to go longer with exercise. So practice nasal breathing. Obviously, there comes a point where you're going at a real high intensity and you build up enough oxygen debt where you need to breathe out of your mouth, but try as much as possible to be breathing out of your nose and only your nose while you're exercising at lower moderate intensities. Now, ways to support nasal breathing, because some of you guys are thinking there's no way I can do this because I'm always congested. So we'll talk about that, some strategies we can take. But number one is you just got to be mindful of your breathing patterns, mindful of how you are breathing, and trying to be mindful of not breathing out of your mouth and only breathing out of your nose. There's acupressure techniques that I'm going to show you. One very simple technique. There's many of them out there, but there's one very simple technique that can really help improve any sort of sinus congestion that you can do right now as you're listening to this. There's also mouth taping. This is especially good at night. Okay. Or times like maybe when you're exercising, if you really want to, although I wouldn't do it if you're intending to exercise at a high intensity. However, if you're really trying to train your body to breathe out of your nose, just putting some tape over your mouth allows you to do that because you can't breathe out of your mouth. So at night, this is what I do. I put some tape over my mouth. And again, it trains my body to breathe through my nose. You can also use nasal strips or nasal magnets that work well to kind of open up your nostrils to allow more oxygen, 10 to 20% more airflow, right, through there. And there's also sinus rinses. If you're really noticing a lot of congestion, there's a sinus cleanse spray that I'm going to show you. And you can also nebulize. You can nebulize hydrogen peroxide. You can nebulize biomolecular oxygen, different things that you can nebulize that will get right up into your respiratory system and help clear out all kinds of junk and different pathogens and bad bacteria and fungus and things like that that are in your sinuses that may be congesting you. So acupressure technique. This is really simple. Step one, place and push your tongue against the top of your mouth. So just take your tongue, put it and lay it flat against the top of your mouth. Step two is put your finger, could be any finger, between your eyebrows and apply some pressure. So right in between that little spot between your eyebrows, go ahead, you put some pressure there with your tongue at the top or the roof of your mouth. And then hold that position for 20 to 30 seconds. And you'll be surprised. 80% of people tell me, wow, I already noticed and I'm breathing better, that my sinuses seem to be less congested. And so try that out for yourself. Again, tongue at the roof of your mouth, put your finger right in that spot between your eyebrows, hold that position for 20 to 30 seconds. Now, breathe right strips. This is something that I like to use as well. It really helps open up your nostrils so you get more airflow, especially if you're concerned about, snoring or not. If you have mouth tape and you're concerned you're not going to be able to get enough oxygen in through your nose, this can really help because again, it's going to open up the nostrils. And there's also magnets as well that will do this. There's different magnet brands where you've got little magnets you put on your nose and a little strip that connects them and it opens up those nostrils. But it can be really helpful for relieving nasal congestion that's caused by colds or allergies. Really good for people with deviated septums. You might have a deviated septum that can cause disruption in airflow, and that can help because it just, again, opens everything up. And of course, it reduces snoring caused by nighttime nasal congestion. So you can also use a neti pot, right? Neti pot, you take some saline, right? And saline's easy. You just take 8 ounces of clean, purified water. You put a half a teaspoon of sea salt in there, and you just mix it up until the salt is dissolved. So you shouldn't see like salt clumping at the bottom or anything like that. Just mix it up till it's dissolved. You put that saline in there, and the salt water is natural antifungal, antibacterial, right? So it helps to grab up bad bacteria and fungus that are in there and really helps to clean the area up and reduces inflammation in that region. So a lot of people see really good results using a neti pot to help reduce sinus congestion. So that's something you do in the evening before you go to bed as well, or just really whenever you need to, is use an neti pot. And then we also have a specific sinus spray, and this is a fulvic humic acid based spray. So it's these bioactive carbons that help the microbiome in your sinuses communicate more effectively. And when the microbiome in the sinuses is communicating well, it actually helps to naturally reduce bad fungal, species and bacterial species that are causing inflammation there, and will help to naturally align the right, bacteria and the right microbes to produce the right amount of postbiotics to support good nasal activity. So you're able to really breathe effectively in there. So Ion Sinus is great. Use this regularly. It's really, really good for overall sinus health. And really just about everybody can use improved sinus health. Most people have colonization of mold or fungal species, bad bacteria in there that's, causing them to have to obviously clear their nostrils a lot, causing postnasal drip, causing a lot of different issues, causing breathing problems. And so using something like this, the Ion Sinus Spray, can be really helpful there. Now you can also do a nebulizer, and I've done a previous podcast video and have an in-depth article on my website all about nebulizing hydrogen peroxide for respiratory health. But a nebulizer is a piece of medical equipment that changes certain medications or therapeutic supplements from a liquid form to a mist, right? So it takes it from a liquid, makes it into a gas, or puts it into aerosol droplets that allow you to inhale it, and it can even get deep into your lung. And so the benefits, it improves the absorption into your respiratory system. So whatever you're trying to nebulize, it could just be saline even. Again, we talked about how the salt itself is antimicrobial, so saline, but also you can add in something like hydrogen peroxide, which is antimicrobial as well, to kill off fungal species, bacteria, different things like that. And then you can also add in things like biomolecular oxygen to get it deep into the tissues as well. So you get more oxygenation into the cells. You can do glutathione, a reduced form of glutathione as well, to support your immune system. And it's really great. So this is something I definitely recommend for prevention of respiratory infections, but also to help improve sinus congestion. Can be really helpful. And so how do you prepare this? Basically, you just prepare hydrogen peroxide. This is just a simple recipe. Take 2 teaspoons of 3% food grade hydrogen peroxide and combine that to 8 ounces of saline water. Again, saline water, you can make your own. Just take 8 ounces of purified water and add half a teaspoon of sea salt, stir it up really good until the salt is dissolved. So you take the 8 ounces there, you add in 2 teaspoons of 3% food grade hydrogen peroxide. And then you go ahead and you take about 2 to 3 mLs, or about a half a teaspoon for each nebulizing session. And it will last you about 10 minutes or so of nebulizing. And then you can keep that solution refrigerated for a long time and continue to reuse it. It's really simple to easy to make. One thing I also like adding in there is a drop or two of biomolecular oxygen, right? Which helps the body eliminate anaerobic pathogens. So this oxygen is real disruptive for anaerobic pathogens that live without oxygen. It also supports your detoxification pathways and improves cellular energy production, and can be really good when you're nebulizing. It can get up into the blood, and as the nasal passages are opening up, can deliver it right into the brain as well. So it can really help relieve, just kind of headaches, congestion related, brain fog, things like that. So it can be really, really helpful there. So I like using that biomolecular oxygen as well from Microbe Formulas. So if you guys are listening to this on video, I will have links for the article on nebulizing hydrogen peroxide underneath this. I'll also have a link for the biomolecular oxygen product and a detailed link that goes through all the studies on nasal breathing, so you can better understand that. Guys, thanks so much. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this training. Be sure to leave us a 5-star review if you haven't already. That really helps us reach more people and impact more lives. Appreciate you guys, and we'll see you on a future video.